Hello, Star Wars fans. It's been 5 days since Christmas 2020. I hope that the year is ending off on a positive note for you. I saw where Gray is going to get her COVID test, and both of my brothers have gone out and gotten their COVID vaccines. So we'll see how that goes for them, and hopefully the vaccinations help and we can get past this pandemic in 2021 and see things go in a positive direction. And so let me say hello also to Wu-Tang Wells. Hello, Russell. Welcome. And XR Coon, good to have you here. And today, just go ahead and introduce. We've got my partner in crime, if you will, Imagic Maker from Reimagining Star Wars has joined us for this discussion today. And let me just introduce the topic a little bit. I have been engaged in, probably like many of you as well, the discussions on Discord and in social media over the dust up between Pablo Hidalgo and Star Wars theory. And the point here isn't to get into that dust up. It's to talk about the result of the dust up. You can take sides. You can say Pablo was doing, was innocent or guilty. You can say that Theory was a victim or he's taking advantage. That really isn't pertinent to the point. The fandom itself has responded in a way that I guess shouldn't be unexpected. We've seen the usual battle lines drawn, the usual characters come to play, and a lot of it is a function of the society and the environment we're in. So a Magic Maker has joined me here. We're going to talk through some of these points and talk about how it is that the fandom can view these things in the light of what we've seen and how we might perceive things or act upon these things in a more constructive way. So with that introduction, a Magic Maker, say hello. Welcome.
Hello. I've been told I have to be good and that I'm not allowed to laugh at Theory.
Oh, no, that's right. That's right. And if anybody, we'll see who else joins, but Trinity, Second Street Marvel, his stream this morning was very good. And he's generally on point there as far as these arguments go. When people get all fired up and taken to a frenzy, he's got a really good take on it. And I look forward as well to seeing maybe where some of our other friends in the community take this whole thing. So we'll see who joins us in the chat today. Of course, we've got some of our regulars here, XR Coon and Wu-Tang Wells. Gray had to step out, but we'll see who else joins. So here's what I've seen. Theory and Pablo had this interaction, right? So on Nerd Theory Monday night, there was a talk between Josh, Theory, and they got Mark Hernandez from the Rule of Two. The three of them had a discussion, and that then sent the internet into a frenzy. We were trending. The whole thing was trending in social media, and Twitter, and Variety picked it up yesterday. They ran an article on it, and so it's hit the mainstream media, those official news outlets, and we've now, hey, Mark Hamilton, welcome. Mark and I have been talking as well, and so there's some thoughts I want to share that Mark and I have chatted as well. So the dust up goes. Well, as a response, now you get the Fandom Menace folks are posting video after video. They're riled up. The pitchforks are out. The knives are sharpened, and they're headed at Lucasfilm, right? The torches blazing. They're marching. And meanwhile, I've seen in some Discord groups, Theory is taking hits from people saying that he's manipulating the narrative in a way that benefits him to get clicks and views. And so what I see in the fandom is rather than saying, having some civil discourse, some dialogue, some things that help in a constructive manner, we just see knives sharpened and people drawing battle lines. So how might we change those behaviors?
I think you got to learn to laugh at this. I mean, this is, people just want to be angry sometimes, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's like, all right. So we know that I made the statement before we began this. It's like when we don't have a common enemy to fight against, then we must fight against each other. And that in the one way, I guess we're taking on the persona of Mandalorians. That's what I was saying. That's a fandom. And so here's the thing, is that that what, Theory's situation is kind of laughable. And I mean, if you want to cry over something because you're so emotionally moved by it, great. If somebody finds it ridiculous, let them laugh. Don't be offended by it. I mean, like I told you that, and maybe I'm just that kind of jackwagon at the either thinks so highly of himself that he doesn't care what other people's opinions are, or maybe I just don't care that much about myself, so I don't care what other people's opinions are. I mean, there are certain opinions I care about, of course. Yeah. And those people that I care about are the ones that are close to me. And if they have a poor opinion of me, that affects me because that means that something I've done has affected them. But if you don't affect me, I don't care what you think about me. Make jokes all day long.
Yeah. I think that's a healthy way to look at it. And we have folks that are handling it well, but I think the factor that needs played in is the motivation. Why are people using this as an opportunity to draw knives at one another? And from some, it's disingenuous, right? So there are people absolutely playing into this to get clicks on their videos. Maybe I'm guilty of that today as well to some degree, but there are people using it to get attention, to get people to watch their videos and to bring people in. Mandalore the Reclaimer, hey, welcome back. Good to have you here. Specific to you, my friend, we're going to have a good discussion, I think, tomorrow. We'll talk about this in just a little bit, where we talk about Imagic Maker and I. We're going to continue our Thursday discussions about Star Wars, and we're going to talk about what else was going on in the universe during the sequel trilogy. So there are other players out there, and what were they doing? And does it matter? So just for example, of course, we've got the Filoni verse and what's going on with the Mandalorian. Where were the Mandalorians? What about the name drop of Thrawn? Where was he? Where's the Chiss? What's going on with the Ascendancy and in the Grisk? Certainly, they at the current time, there's some battle lines there and encroachments upon one another, if you've kept up with the Thrawn novels. So where were they? What about the crime bosses, the crime lords, the families that we've seen from other Star Wars content? So that's our discussion tomorrow. What's going on outside of the sequel trilogy during that same timeline? What's going on? And might that be an interest to see develop further? So look for that tomorrow, and we'll talk more about it here once we get past the main topic of the day. And Will Morgan, good morning. So to get back on topic here, Mark has a comment. First, you have to want to fix it, right? The fandom menace types don't want to fix anything. They enjoy the pitchforks too much. Communities built on it, and their leaders monetize it. Amen, Mark. That's exactly.
Let me push back against that, actually, because I would put myself more on the fandom menace side, and so I know that we're at opposites, but I mean, there has to be there. Like I said, there's when I talked about it last week. There's something called a bridge of empathy, and so that in that bridge of empathy, both sides have to want to have a dialogue across it. And remember, trolls get in because they don't want any empathy to occur. Now, there's empathies on all sides. There are trolls on all sides.
Sure.
And so they get inside and they interrupt the conversations like that me and you are having. So the idea that the Phantom Menace has to want to fix it, well, both sides have to want to fix it. So if one side's position is I like it the way it is, I want it all moving that way and no changes, then that's not a compromise. It's accept my boot up your butt whether you like it or not.
Right.
And then so that side is not I'm tired of sitting on your boot, and and I'm going to fight back with everything I got. That's not a position of empathy that bridge brings about. That bridge is right. So there's got to be that, and so incidents reopen wounds. So remember we were talking about if had the wound been had the wound. This is the phantom heal, phantom or the fandom healed, right? And I said no, the bleeding has stopped. Remember that?
Yep.
And so that means if the bleeding stopped, the wound is still fresh. So it doesn't take much to reopen that wound. All right. And so a simple laugh at somebody's pain is a lack of empathy, which I often suffer from, which is why I said I would laugh at Theory, because I think it's a bit. I mean, there are movies that make me cry. I'm not saying I'm completely without feeling. Luke going down the as much as I love Luke is my hero. I grew up on the original trilogy. I wanted to see that Luke. That did not make me cry. It made me go, oh my gosh, oh wow,
Right.
it's Luke. I didn't cry over it.
Right. Right. Well, I got excited too, and I've been Luke Skywalker wasn't one of the primary heroes of my childhood, but it was fantastic seeing him. And it was fantastic seeing him during that era. So, and I think it's fair enough for different people to have different emotions. And I'll give you a couple of examples from real life, and trying to put this without making anybody feel awkward, but let's say during the loss of a loved one, be it a parent or a sibling or a child, people respond somewhat differently. Some people will grieve for a few days. Some people will dive into work headlong to help them put their mind away from it. Some people retract, right? They go into isolation. There are different ways to deal with that kind of personal loss, and that no one way is right to be modeled by everyone. So you can't tell somebody who has suffered a grievous loss, hey, you can't respond that way, right? You can maybe say, hey, is it really best for you to be at work? Shouldn't you be dealing with your emotions? And they're like, no, I need to work because I can't deal with my emotions. Well, okay. But you can't tell them you can't be at work because you must deal with your emotions, right? And what we see are people saying that what Pablo did or what Theory did are wrong. And you can't do that. And I tend to agree with you that, hey, Pablo might be a jerk, right? He might be a terrible human being. He might be a guy that I wouldn't be friends with, right, in real life. Or maybe he's a great guy, wonderful friend, and somebody who I connect with really well. I don't know because I don't know the guy, right? So he responds or he puts something on his Twitter where he's got some friends that he trusts, and he puts something out there that's distasteful. Maybe tone deaf, and he doesn't have a real good social media awareness of who he is, what his influence is, and how he's being watched. And so it gets a negative response. Well, Theory then responds by calling him out, and everybody then gets drawn up in battle lines. And and that's, I think all of that is normal. I'm not throwing rocks at either one of them from as far as what their reactions and all of that is. Look, I think Pablo was tone deaf and was pretty stupid in what he did. But I'm not going to say.
But let me ask a question. I don't know the detail of this. I thought the detail was that this was something that originally Theory couldn't see. So it was kind of inside of Pablo Hidako's inner circle that he had. So it wasn't just out fully in the public to where Theory could see it, and it got leaked to the rest of the public. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean, he has a private group that he only lets people he knows in person in, right? So if you're a Star Wars fan, it doesn't matter what kind of Star Wars fan you are. If you're a sequel fan or a sequel hater, you loved The Last Jedi or you hated it, it doesn't really matter. If he knows you or he doesn't know you is the criteria to get in, right? And I don't know him. I asked to be part, to follow him. I don't expect he'll let me in, right? I just, because he doesn't know me. I don't know him. And he's not interested in that. So, yeah, he posted something in there. Somebody in there broke confidence, and they took a screenshot and they posted it out, which then caused a whole series of things to happen.
Right. So he wasn't. So here's the thing. So like, just now, I made kind of a joke about the whole thing, or when we were behind the scenes, I was making a few jokes, right? And so you have some things that you would say that some people consider distasteful that you say, in your inner circle, that you would say because, in general, you trust the situation, and you would let your guard down a little bit that you wouldn't do under a normal situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so in public, if I was directly talking to Theory, and I saw him crying, I'd probably laugh as I saw it on the thing, like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous, which I kind of which I just expressed, right?
Right.
To his face, I would not go, yeah, you're that's really dumb, man.
Right.
To his face, I wouldn't do that. I'd be like, wow, I did not expect that response. That's probably how I would have responded to that.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that really teared you up, man.
Yeah.
But that's personal. That's me being, that's me showing that empathy in that personal, building that bridge, personal. All right. Versus me talking to you going, wow, he kind of overreacted to that. They're saying, what do you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think that's fair. And that's what I mean about that's why I brought up the case of somebody who lost somebody, right? So somebody dies, like a child, sibling, or parent, and their response is different than yours, right? And maybe they head into work and you think that that's a wrong thing to do, right? So as a friend, I might say, hey, do you really think you should be here? Right? Like, I think you should maybe take some time, stay at home, deal with your feelings, and reach out to loved ones and spend some time away from here. Right? I might say that to them. Right? And I've heard those kind of things said to people, but they might respond. And I've heard this as well. Right? No, I need to get into work. I need to take a break. Right? I need to get away from my emotions. I just can't deal with it all the time. So this is helpful for me. You're like, okay, well, that's not how I would respond, but good for you, right? And then I might come to you later and say, man, I can't believe they're coming into work. That's just craziness, right?
Right.
But that's empathy, and that's also just sharing. Like, hey, I wouldn't respond the way they respond.
Right.
So what you're saying about theory is absolutely right, but at the same time, I think there's some motivations going on. So when you look at the Fandom Menace folks and the way that they're responding, I don't think it's either of those cases. I think they're monetized, and I think they know that hate sells and that it gets clicks, and sharpening the knives and lighting the torches is a way for them to get revenue. And I think Theory is somewhat guilty as well, because he has an option here to reach back out to Lucasfilm and say, hey, because they reached out to him, right? They said, hey, there's been a misunderstanding. We'd like to talk to you. He's like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Why doesn't he want to talk to them? Right? Why? Right. Why won't he talk to them?
Right. So I think I can answer both. So let me see if I can attempt to answer what I think both situations are. So the first is in the monetizing is not really that. It's our, I thought we were fixing this, but haha, it's proof that you're callous to my feelings after all. You
Mhm.
don't care how I feel about my Star Wars, and you so don't care about it that you're willing to laugh at me. That's one that's coming up. That I'm not saying everybody's reacting that way, but
Right.
that's where that reaction's occurring from. So you're calloused. You have no see. You prove you have no empathy to my feelings.
Mm.
So we're destroying the bridge, right? So
Right.
boom, the bridge is destroyed, um, and you have no empathy. All right, and so the reason why you don't have a conversation when they, why theory doesn't um, respond to it and say I'm willing to have a dialogue is because he also feels that you just laughed directly at me. You just pointed your finger at me. You have no empathy for me, and now I feel like you're just faking it, and so I'm not going to have a conversation with you.
Oh,
And
sure.
I
That,
mean
that, that-
that's the answer on both of those cases,
I think
most
that's the
likely.
case with Pablo for sure, right? Like you're being fake, right? I don't trust you. I have no reason to trust you. You've given me evidence to think that this is disingenuous reaching out to me, and I just don't have any interest right now in dealing with your disingenuity. What's the word? Being disingenuous, right?
Right.
I don't have any desire to deal with that. So no thanks. But when Lucasfilm reaches out and says, "Hey, there's been a misunderstanding. We'd like to talk," why won't he respond to that?
Yeah, because he probably feels that it's not genuine. It's part of damage control.
Well, probably true. But how do you get past it if you won't have dialogue? So that's my point. So there's two things. I mentioned this just before we went live. When you're dealing with any kind of conflict, there's two things that at least I try to keep in the forefront. First is to assume innocence, and and what I hear you saying, and what I understand is that is not happening. Right? There is no
Absolutely.
assumption.
I think the assumption is that all right. This is what's coming to mind is a husband and wife arguing. All right, and
Yep.
and in this case, theory is on the wife's side. All right,
Yep.
and she's saying, haha, I caught you doing that one thing that I always have that always gets me. Remember when you did X, 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 and X, and X, and X, and X? Here's all the proof that you don't care about my feelings.
Yep.
All right. Boom. I mean, and to which the guy now has to prove that I I am really genuine and sincere in my apology,
Yep.
and that what do I need to cross the divide? So it
Right.
takes extra effort
Yep.
in that case to cross that divide, and it's on the side of the husband in this case of that scenario I'm setting up, the analogy I'm setting up, to
Right.
prove to the wife that I'm willing to cross that divide to create that bridge again.
Yeah.
Um, I think if you tell the wife that she's overreacting, that this is a case of you're, I mean, and telling her that she's really not perceiving what she's perceiving. I mean, this is
Right.
what we talk about gaslighting, right? So, I
Right.
mean, the wife truly, genuinely has her feeling. So you apologize you apologize for the action that caused the feeling. You
Yep.
acknowledge the feeling that it's real, and
Yep.
then the next step is saying, okay, how do I cross the divide so that you genuinely know that I care?
Yeah. 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 That's good. But if you refuse to have the dialogue, then that can't happen. Right.
Right.
And
But I
that's
mean, but doesn't often we have the situation where they well, don't talk to me right now. So what do you have to do? You have to let them
also
calm down. So you have
that's
to let the
exactly right.
situation calm.
Yeah. Yeah. But there has to be at least a willingness at some point to say we can have this discussion later. Right.
Right. And so so this begs the question that what Lucasfilm needs to do and Pablo Hidalgo needs to do is say, listen, I'm genuinely sorry
Yeah.
that yes, I did this in a thing and it was callous and I shouldn't have done it. All right. I admit my fault. All right. And
Mhm.
the next statement is, I recognize that there are some fans like Theory who have an emotional reaction to this that I have callously thought funny, and I was wrong in doing so. All right. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry that I was so callous. So now that you've made the statement, and you say, and then the following on statement is I understand that. And when you're ready to have a dialogue, we are open to have it with you.
Yeah, I think so too. And so that everything you said is spot on. And I also want to say, so there are two things I mentioned. There's two things. The first is saying uh, uh, the presumption of innocence, right? The second is to listen with the intent to understand, right? Like, and there's more technical terms involved, but if you're telling me something, I want to have some sort of intent of understanding where you're coming from, put myself in your shoes, right? So, what were your motivations? Why did you say what you did? Why did you do what you did? Whatever the case might be, and that's how you enter into some sort of resolution. And maybe they're too raw for that. Maybe it's not the right things. But exactly what you said. What would it take, right? So I don't trust you. We've done this before. We've like the spouse analogy is a really good one, right? Like a battered spouse, be it the male or the female, right? Whoever the case might be, the battered spouse has a reason to not trust, right? And when you apologize, well, what changes this apology from the last time or the time before or these other instances? And I absolutely think that's what's going on with Pablo, right? So Pablo has been this way with other people, and there's evidence to say that he's still being this way. And so what has changed, right? Is this an empty apology, or does this have some meaning? And then what would it take? And so that's where I think the discussion needs to happen with Lucasfilm. And so we'll ask a really good question. Theory needs Lucasfilm more than Lucasfilm needs Theory. And I'm not sure of that. But Theory has over 2 million subs, right? Subscribers. He's by far the largest voice in social media in the Star Wars community. People like him or they don't like him. He's gaining or losing respect as this whole incident is playing out, and fans are beginning to draw battle lines against one another. As evidenced by him striking out Eckhart's ladder, right? Eckhart's ladder said something that then got Theory worked up about him. And if I was bigger than a grain of sand on the beach, he might strike out at me for the discussion we're having today, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he'd strike out with me because I'd be laughing.
Well, yeah. So I don't think that he would appreciate this conversation at all, because I'm being somewhat critical of him as well. Hey, Gray, appreciate it. Hope your test comes back negative. She's going for her COVID test. So there's no reason for Theory to attack Eckhart's ladder. Eckhart's ladder was stating his opinion about something, and Theory's attitude is his emotions are raw. He's definitely an emotional person, and fine. Just understand that's who you're dealing with, right? You're dealing with somebody whose emotions are on his sleeve, and that's okay, right? It's okay for him to cry when he sees his hero on screen acting a way that's consistent with his dreams, and make all the Theory's been through, cancer survivor and whatnot. That really describes him as a person. So when Eckhart's ladder says something, and Theory's emotions are already raw, he strikes back. Well, there's where I would be critical. Again, just say, hey, understand that your emotions are raw, but striking out's not being helpful, right?
Right. I mean, there's both sides. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's probably not appropriate that I just openly laugh at Theory, and
right.
But honestly, if I was in the conversation and this had just been reported or we just watched this, and my first reaction would be to laugh. It would be. I'd be like, oh man,
yeah.
and I would chuckle at myself and I would roll my eyes, and that's just how I would react to that.
Yeah.
And so in the raw reaction, I'm just saying raw reaction. I'm sure that if I was sitting there with Theory and I saw him do that, you know, he'd be like, well, that's not very friendly, man. And
no.
You know, and so, but I mean, even if I was probably sitting there, that would be my raw reaction. I'd have to contain it, you know. Yeah. And if I was watching it on TV and I didn't think he was seeing it, I'd probably be openly laughing. And I'm just saying my raw. I mean, that's without knowing all the other stuff. But it's just based on the basic information I have right there. And
Yeah, yeah.
and so does
And
that
being
hurt
jealous
theories?
hurt what you are, right? Just like, right.
And so I look at that and go, I mean, at some point you got to say, I mean, because I mean, Eckhart Slatter, if he's anywhere, I think he's probably more on the Fandom Menace side than he is on the other side. He's taken a good middle position, but I don't think he was a very big fan of the sequel trilogy either, and he's been
Right.
very critical of Lucasfilm and the way they steal people's art.
Oh
And
yeah.
and so I think that I mean, I think he's looking at it in the same sense of like sometimes you just got to be a little bit tougher. And if people laugh at you for your emotional response, you just say, I don't care. That's
Yeah.
my emotional response. It's a real response. You can like it or not like it.
And I agree. I agree with what Mark Hernandez said at the end of Nerd Theory Monday night. Look, if Lucasfilm were earnest and honest, I do think that they need Theory, and I think Theory needs them. The Theory wouldn't have a job if it weren't for Lucasfilm, right? Like he makes his full-time living off of Star Wars fandom, and he does a great job. He's got a lot of people following. There's things that his that I love, and there's things that I don't like. Right, I've considered unsubbing from him over this whole ordeal, just to be honest, because that's not why I follow him. But his other stuff is really good. But if Lucasfilm really wanted to make amends, what could we do they should put him on the press junkets, right? Like when they're releasing something and they've got the actors doing interviews with Variety and everybody else, the Theory should be on that list. And they should say, hey, we need to schedule, whoever the case, with
I
you.
disagree. To me, that right there is pandering. I hate to be pandered to.
But it's to acknowledge, hey, we see you as an asset in the Star Wars community.
Sure, then they should have offered it prior.
Yeah, I think so too. But that's a change of behavior.
But you don't do it because I've just made you because you're mad.
Well, but how do they get there?
Well, I mean, the answer is you let it calm down, and then when the opportunity arises, you have a conversation, and you say, and in that conversation, it's like, you know what? I mean, I don't think you necessarily do the press junket, but that doesn't mean you don't open a new dialogue, and that dialogue could at some point include press junkets, but it is not a concession because I made you mad. I'm not like, if you'll forgive me, I'll do this for you. Please just forgive me. Here's some flowers.
Oh.
I mean, you're either genuinely apologizing in which you begin a conversation, and then in which opportunities for a friendship occurs, and then inside that friendship, new opportunities arise to where together you can promote Star Wars, or you don't do anything. Otherwise, what you just talked about is the true epitome of disingenuous.
Yeah. But at the same time, it can come from a place of earnesty, and once you've had that conversation, it can be something that you offer as, hey, we do see you as value. We want to show you that we see you as value, and we want to, while we don't see eye to eye, we don't agree on your takes and things. We see that you're a valuable member of the Star Wars community as a whole, and we don't ask any concessions of you, right? So a lot of people
I just don't want it to occur. I want it to occur as a part of a natural growth of a dialogue that led to friendship, versus or a partnership versus we screwed up. I need to go buy some jewelry.
Right. I get you. And Mark posted. I did see Theory posted a letter, an open letter, and in that letter, it was very, very good. It kind of closed, resolved it, and said, "Hey, this is the deal." But he also. Mark's next comment was good. You'll never hear the end of it from the usual suspects. And I agree. I mean, these people have some financial motivation to stir the pot. And while I understand that that's perfectly within their realm to do that. There should be some open eyes about the motivation behind it. When I see people coming out and defending Midnight's Edge or the Fandom Menace types, that what they're reporting is accurate or right, or that they are somehow showing Lucasfilm's flaws because of this ordeal. That's opportunistic,
Hey,
and
you're
that's
stepping on my toes. I love those shows.
well. I know there are fans, right? I know there are fans.
I do listen to the show. I listen to both Midnight's Edge and I listen to what's his name, Doomcock, and I do get their take. And it's not because I necessarily agree with them, but there are occasionally kernels of truth in the. Every occasionally there is a diamond that's swallowed and comes out in the poop, and and so and so I mean. I get it. I know what they're doing, but the same sense as there's other takes on it. I mean, like I have heartburn with Star Wars Explained too because of the other side,
Yeah.
and so and there's others out there that I have heartburn with. But I mean, and I have heartburn with them when they go too far, and I guess it's because I find myself, center anti sequel, and it's where I'm at. I'm center Star Wars. I love Star Wars for what it is and what it lets the playground it lets me work in, though I hate aspects that have come out of the Disney thing. I hate stuff from the Lucas era too. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the prequels, right? I mean, I had to rewrite them in order to enjoy them. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's doing really good edits, fan edits of the prequels, and soon I will have the first two complete, and soon after that, hopefully this in the first quarter of 2021, we'll have the third fan edit complete with Revenge of the Sith, and so I mean very excellent fan edits. I could watch if this had been the edit. I probably could have watched them with very, I won't say few complaints, with less complaints than I would have otherwise.
Right. You raise another good topic I'd like to explore at some point, and I almost did it today, but I didn't pull the trigger on it because it just didn't have the right prep time. Is can we get from The Mandalorian to the sequel trilogy in the same timeline without in a reasonable way that makes sense, right? Leaving the sequel trilogy where it is,
untouched,
primarily untouched, right? And using the classic Star Wars from a certain point of view, retconning.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get from where we are in The Mandalorian to the sequel trilogy, knowing that that's your end point? Or do you just, is there a path? That's really the question. Is there a path? So I won't dive too much into it. I'll leave that as an open-ended thing and look forward to maybe talk about that in a future stream.
I think we're going to have to talk about it tomorrow as we talk about what else was going on.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're absolutely going to have to talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah, we can talk about that tomorrow. That's really good. So, and Mark, you're absolutely right. There are some folks who are critical of the sequel trilogy, and I put Thor Skywalker right there is what you're saying. They want nothing to do with the Fandom Menace or their mentality. Thor Skywalker is a perfect example of that. Right? He comes at it. He has a very high distaste for the sequel trilogy. He's in favor of seeing it retconned out of existence or put into an alternate timeline. He's of that mindset, but he's also not attacking people who are sequel trilogy fans or criticizing them or putting them down in any way. But he wants people to enjoy what they enjoy about Star Wars, whether it's The Last Jedi or not. He has no beef, and I commend him for that. I disagree with Thor over 90% of the time, and I don't know that he's honestly trying to understand things from a different perspective. He's really set in his own perspective, but he does a good job of using reason to discuss why he thinks what he thinks, even if he's not trying to understand the other side, right? So I do think there are people like that, but that doesn't excuse our Fandom Menace folks from sharpening the knives, lighting the torches, and marching every time they get the opportunity. And they're fanning the flames. These folks are not interested in any kind of reconciliation, and they do, regardless of what they say, they do put down people who disagree with them, and they take issue with them, and they actively are dividing the fandom. I don't see any way that they're helping bring people together. I just don't.
Right. I think that, again, it's, in making that statement, you're saying that there is no possible way to cross the divide with them. And I think because you're saying they have to cross the divide to you.
Well,
so if both sides say you have to cross the divide to me, and then there will never be reconciliation. And so I think your definitive statement of saying what you just said about the Fandom Menace puts them on the defensive, which is going to make the conflict that is occurring never end. So somebody has to say to someone, all right, how do we cross this divide? How I mean, and so at first the person's going to say, I want everything retconned. I want all the things that I want. Here's my 10 demands. I want all 10 of them, or there can be no conversation. And and the other person then says, well, how about this one? Not enough. And so at some point you say, in the course of making the discussion, you get to, I can probably do 3 or 4 of those. And as you work your way to them, you start to figure out in the conversation what's the most important, what they need to come to reconciliation. I mean, that's a normal process of negotiation. And but somebody has to reach out and say, I'm going to swallow my pride for a moment. And I'm not saying which side it has to be, but it can't be. But you cannot take the position that this is all because of them.
Well, I certainly think they are fanning the flames rather than trying to have discord.
Sure, but I mean, I think in this case, they may be fanning the flames, but they didn't spark the fire.
No, but so I posted in Discord that we have some folks out there who are arsonists, right? They enjoy setting fires,
right?
And I think some of them fall into that category where they see the opportunity, right? There's some dry grass or there's a smoldering fire. Rather than trying to contain it or address it, they intentionally fan the flames and fuel it, and that's where I have an issue with them. It's fine to point it out and say, hey, look, there is still burning embers in that cauldron, right? So we had this discussion a week ago about how the Mandalorian, the Filoniverse, is healing the fandom, right? And I put Band-Aids in that thumbnail for a reason, right? The wounds are still deep and they still have a lot of healing to do.
But we stopped the bleeding. We didn't heal the wound.
Exactly. And I think that we have the beginnings of some healing, but it's very fragile. Band-Aids come right off, right? So these aren't stitches. These aren't, medical attention where maybe some triage is needed. These are Band-Aids. And it's going to take time. It's going to take effort and patience to allow that to heal. You can't just keep picking at it. And so what I see a lot of these folks doing is just opening up those wounds to let it, and again, fanning the flames rather than saying, oh, look, there's still a fire over there and it needs addressed. That's fine. And if you want to say Lucasfilm still has some internal issues as evidenced by Pablo's actions, then that's absolutely appropriate. And then to Theory's point, hey, this was uncalled for and it's inappropriate. Absolutely fine with that. But when you start then attacking each other, right? Theory's attacking Eckhart's ladder, and people are unsubbing from Theory, and people are calling Theory out for being opportunistic, and then other people are defending Theory and saying if you aren't with him, you're against us, kind of thing. It's that Sith mentality, and that
it's a false dichotomy. It's a
exactly.
false absolute. So
exactly.
Exactly. I mean, and that's why we're finding ourselves in the,
Yeah.
At least we find ourselves in the middle. I mean, and so like, here's the thing. This is what I would caution you against, Santa, is that when people feel attacked, they respond, and so some people feel the same way as Theory, and so Theory points out something. He gets a little upset about it and he responds to it. And some people think it's an overreaction. And so they in turn attack him for overreacting. So, oh, now you're just being so the idea of saying now you were upset and he goes out on it, you're just being opportunistic and you're just trying to get clicks out of this, as opposed to saying, I didn't appreciate this. I'm gonna use my platform to say I didn't appreciate it. Yeah. And I think that things need to change. Right. Is not necessarily opportunistic. So as soon as you do that, as soon as you say his feelings and his reasoning is not genuine, all right. Yeah. Then that becomes an attack, and so then I have to defend myself. And then when you defend, people choose their sides and they rally to that side. Yep. And so and like I said, it wasn't that Pablo Hidalgo, I mean, Lucasfilm sparked it, all right? The spark landed, whoever leaked it and put it in the thing, placed those sparks into dry tinder, all right?
Oh, yeah.
And now there's plenty of people, and so those people are part of that tinder. They're that fuel that's all around it, and they've been waiting for this spark to relight up. And so you Lucasfilm, it is incumbent upon Lucasfilm to ensure sparks do not make it out into the forest. Yeah. It is not incumbent upon Midnight's Edge or Doomcock, or who's the other guy, Green Hat.
Oh, Geeks and Gamers.
It's not incumbent upon them to not catch on fire. They're dry tinder. They're ready to go.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's incumbent upon Lucasfilm to ensure that the sparks do not land among the dry tinder, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that Lucasfilm, like I saw where there were a post that said they're hiring a social media manager. I hope that they are. And I hope they hire somebody competent who understands the forest that they're getting into, right? The dry tinder, right? The elements, and that they are able to manage that in a constructive way. I certainly do. Hey, there's Trinity. I was talking about you earlier, Trinity. Welcome. Glad to have you here. No, again, Trinity's stream this morning was on point and exactly on point, especially when you're talking about how, look, these disagreements should be things that bring us together for conversation. They should spark these kind of conversations like we're having today. And that's why I truly, truly value what Imagic Maker and I are doing here. And we've had private conversations on the side. I feel like what we're doing is beneficial. We're pointing out, hey, there are issues, and we're having the discussions about those issues. We're not just fanning flames and pouring fuel on the fire. It's to acknowledge that these things exist, and to say, hey, how might we deal with them, right? And to give people some validation that what they're feeling and what they're experiencing is fair, right? It's fair to feel attacked, or it's fair to feel let down. But at the same time, people have different perspectives and they come at it from different ways, different histories, different background. And don't see eye to eye. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's what we should be doing. So there's a couple of good things here, and it may be changing topics just a little bit. Anthony's brought up a couple of questions, and I want to address those questions. Um, so going all the way back up here, do you feel Lucasfilm should have brought these Disney Plus shows before releasing the sequel trilogy? I think Lucasfilm made a lot of mistakes during the sequel trilogy project, we'll call it that, and that they've learned a lot of lessons from that, and that we wouldn't be where we are with Disney Plus shows in the Filoniverse, what Favreau and Filoni are doing, without those lessons having been learned. So I'm encouraged that the things that they did during the sequel trilogy seem to have, and what they acknowledge, whether they agree or disagree with the stances the fans have, they've acknowledged the effect that it's had on the fans. And they've worked very hard to create content that won't have that same effect going forward. Again, they can stand absolutely behind the sequel trilogy and say that what they did there, they're proud of. That's fine. But understand that they also made a lot of missteps along that path, and that the effect of what they did on the fandom, that they seem to have owned up to some degree. To some degree. I don't think they fully owned it, but they are acknowledging that they need to change their ways. So it would have been nice in hindsight, but I don't think that we can say that we would be where we are had that not happened.
Yeah, I think that there was. I mean, we all jump into things unprepared for what might come about from them. I mean, and so I think the pressure to make back $4.05 billion was real.
Yeah.
And that's a huge pressure on anybody. I think it was a huge pressure on Kathleen Kennedy to produce these films and get them out. I mean, I think that running Lucasfilm and all of its parts was pretty overwhelming, in addition to trying to produce all these films. And honestly, if we go back and look at these things, every one of the films that had problems, right, and every one of them did,
Yeah.
right, came, honestly, and I'm not trying to be critical of Kathleen Kennedy in this, but it came from the place of pre-production. And,
certainly.
And in pre-production, that is the when
Yeah.
it comes to movie making, short of getting money and ensuring money is going to the right place at the right time for the right things, the executive producer and producer's role is to ensure that pre-production is all lined up and that everything in the story is going to play out and is envisioned and ready to roll before they start shooting film.
Yeah.
And so Kathleen Kennedy dropped the ball on this. I'm not, and this is not to try to, because we've already talked about the legacy of Kathleen Kennedy. The difference between executive producing and running a company are two different things. And so if Kathleen Kennedy has a failure, is that she also has all the aspects that come with Lucasfilm, because Lucasfilm was more than just a studio making one film. It's got Skywalker Sound. It has Industrial Light and Magic, and there's a ton of little aspects, other little companies that are spun off of that. She has got to run them all.
Yeah.
Right. So I think from the perspective that she was a bit overwhelmed and could not do what she normally had done in the executive producer role and producer role was a reality. And so these filmmakers got to run with their vision without being hemmed in by by a normal producer.
Well, it's more than that. And I've mentioned this as well. Lucasfilm didn't have a culture or a history of having pre-planned, right? George Lucas himself was making it up on the fly, and he got a lot of grief from that in the prequels. And first of all, Anthony, I think I've addressed this. You said hindsight being 2020. Yeah, it would have been nice had they learned the lessons that I'm just talking about, right? Had they had this culture of pre-planning and a strong story planned out prior to sitting down to film anything, like just as the Magic Maker just talked about, had they had that culture in place beforehand, then the execution of the sequels would have been far better. I think as a result of what happened during the sequels and exactly what you just said, they learned this lesson, and the culture at Lucasfilm seems to have adjusted, and that it seems to have been on the right track in recent notes. So my perspective or my feelings about the future is very bright. And you go to XR Kuhn, what you said, the prequels broke the fandom. That's absolutely true. The prequels put us like prior to the prequel, in the original trilogy, there were folks who didn't like some story decisions or execution. Specifically, we can talk about the Ewoks, right? So they weren't executed extremely well. and so we've fallen in love with those stories, but there's still places where you can criticize the original trilogy fairly. And the Ewoks are a good example, right? They're walking carpets. And you could see like those outfits that they wore were poorly produced, right? They're just not good. And so those things existed, but in the prequel, so there were parts of the fandom that were critical all the way back, and that's fine. But the prequels broke the fandom, and that's absolutely true. That's when the fans started really fighting with each other. And there are those of us still that are critical, highly critical of the prequels, and have major issues with them to this day. And and there are now a group of fans who are tremendous sequel or prequel defenders. They love them. The Star Wars they grew up with, and and Theory's one of them. He loves those movies and defends them to the hilt, and that's fine. That's great. But it did break it. And then you saw the Clone Wars series, season 7, Mando, all of those things help to heal the prequels, and that's true as well. Without the Clone Wars animated series and Rebels, these things, I don't know that I would be where I am today in my view of the prequels. I still don't like them, but I can appreciate them far better now than I could before.
Yeah.
And it's where I stand. So then, yeah, the sequels.
And good fan edits help a lot too.
Yeah, the sequels broke it again. And then Pablo is right there in it, and we've kind of talked about those things, right? The tinder is there,
right,
and it's not healed entirely yet. I think we'll continue to see this cycle continue, but indefinitely. I really don't see where we're going to get on the same page.
No, I don't think it'll be indefinite. And I mean, how long did the prequel problems last?
Yeah.
Realistically, how long did they last? They were starting to die off about 2012, right? So when did the last prequel get made? 2005. So between, so how did we get this? Is one of the prequel lovers' biggest complaints. They'll say we got the sequel trilogy because of all of you who hated the prequels. Right. I've heard that more than one time.
Well, that's not untrue. Right?
So why do we go into when is the development for the sequel trilogy beginning? So 2012. So we're inside the decade of since the last prequel. All right. And so at about 2015, all right. So with 2012, the last Clone Wars kind of ends. People are starting to digest it. The hate for the prequels is declining. All right. Not only that, people who grew up with them are starting to come up into the era of loving. They've now grown up with Clone Wars. They are now the new Star Wars main, purchasing and main lovers of Star Wars. They're the new audience, right?
Yep.
And so, but who dominates making the sequel trilogy? Well, those who are not very
Right.
loving of the prequel trilogy, right?
Right.
And so because why? Because they're now in the positions, they've aged to the positions of power.
Yeah.
Though the prequel lovers are in the positions of the consumer.
Yeah.
And so what do we get? We get something that wants to stay as far away from the prequels as possible.
Yeah.
And so what do? We rehash A New Hope, and really I would say the entire trilogy inside of The Force Awakens. And I think that's a real criticism. I don't disagree with that criticism. And it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that we do rehash the entire arcs of all three trilogies inside The Force Awakens to draw everybody who hated the prequels back into Star Wars. All right. And say, hey, see, I'm giving you back your old Star Wars. See,
Yeah.
and all the prequels lovers went, well, it's not bad. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go see this again, and so they're like, okay, so now we get a over $2 billion film grossing over $2 billion because prequels lovers didn't hate it, and they're pretty much on the light side. They're 60%, 70% on the light side. And OT trilogy feels like somebody finally knows the pain we were going through, and maybe we'll get the prequels remade.
Yeah.
And so I was on that train when Disney bought it. Remake the prequels. I was on that train. I was. Do I think it'll happen? Do I think the sequel trilogy will get remade? No, I don't. I mean, I'm realistic. Now, do I think they would if they went guaranteed you'll make $2 billion per film? We would have New Hope out tomorrow.
Yeah.
They knew they were going to make another $2 billion off of it.
Yeah, let me catch up here real quick. So Super Strays, absolutely right. The greatest teacher failure, yes. That's a really good quote. It comes right from the
sequel. Shame on you. Don't do that.
It's straight from the sequel trilogy, and it's the same thing that I think Lucasfilm, I think it applies, right? It's meta that way. So I agree with you 100% there. And the other, and XR Kuhn was put the same thing that you just said, right? The mistake was not hiring nerds that respected all of the fandom. And that's right. Like the sequels came out, they scratched an itch for a lot of us, but they created a sore for many others, right? And Vito, I don't disagree. They should have had a better plan. I think they did have a plan, but it was thin. And what they've learned is they need to have it more planned out. By releasing the shows, they should have corrected the timeline from the sequel trilogy. I do not agree with that. I don't think they need to correct the timeline for the sequel trilogy. I think what they need to do is fill it in and give it a better underlaying foundation. They need to cement some structure for the sequels to stand on. And once they do that, then it'll improve.
Yeah, they're going to have to. I do still think there's going to be some Lucasian aspects that are going to occur in the future with the sequel trilogy. I don't think they can avoid that. They're going to have to smooth some things over, and that will and you will see little additions and little subtractions occur through the course of history. The same way as we've seen all these changes occur in the OT and in the prequels.
I couldn't agree with more, because that's exactly, in the true context of Star Wars retcons, they will absolutely retcon the sequels, meaning they will give us from a different point of view perspective on some of the events, just like they did in the original trilogy, and just like they did in the prequel trilogy, and just as we're likely to get from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, right? A lot of people are concerned about, well, when last we met, right? I was but the learner, and you were right now. So,
well, Lucas already ruined that.
People, right? Well,
they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly. And people are already worried about it. Like how if there's a lot of excitement about hiring Hayden to be in Obi-Wan series, and the promise that we're going to get the duel 2.0. Well, that causes a problem, and so we're worried. Right? There's a lot of people really worried about that retcon. How are they going to retcon it in a sufficient way? To make that statement both true and a different perspective. And that's what was going to happen. I wholeheartedly believe with the sequel trilogy, there will be things that will change our perspective of how we view some of those events, specifically Luke and how he got to Octo in his position there. We will get more context that will change the perspective of it being him igniting the lightsaber over Ben one night. That being the tipping point. I think we'll get a lot more context that will change that perspective.
Or I remember that's what I said. Context is what's needed, and and I think that's you're going just like there was so much context that was needed to fill in the blanks in the prequel trilogy, which is why the Clone Wars is so useful in doing that. It helps fill in the story.
Yeah, and it still doesn't resolve all the issues for all of us, but it does help. Yeah, and I don't think it can do anything that's going to solve the problems of the sequel trilogy for everyone, but it can help. All right.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for 10 more years when they cry out for the original releases, the theatrical releases of the prequels, and then 20 years from now when they cry out for the theatrical releases for the sequels. So I mean,
I want that theatrical release of the original. I'm not going to give up on that till my dying days. I want that. I want it so bad. And the biggest problem with the sequel is the lack of time cranking out a movie. Well, that is a big part of the problem, Ambassador. You're not wrong. But also what Imagic Maker said and what I mentioned, like the culture, Lucasfilm wasn't in a place to have a thorough planning out. Because Lucas flew by the seat of his pants and he changed movies midstream all the way through. Major plot points, not just like the normal course of events where he may have to change a scene here or there, but like Vader killing your father or being your father, that's a major change. Leia not being your sister, being your sister, that's a big change, right? Jar Jar Binks being a major part of the prequels to absent from the prequels, right? Like there were big changes he made along the way based on that feedback, and he was making up as he went, no question. And that becomes part of the culture at Lucasfilm. They didn't really have that firm discipline around creating a story, but I see it there now. I definitely see it in The Mandalorian. I definitely see it in what they're doing, and that I find that to be encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, and we should. I mean, I think it's demanded. I think that's part of the reason why Favreau came in. I think Favreau has a good handle on writing and producing. I think that's why the idea of it being the Filoni verse and not being the Favreau verse. The Filoni verse is what they realized is they needed this one person to ground the story, and so while Favreau is a fan and he's doing the writing, it is Filoni acting in the case of Lucas with a Kazdan saying no, that wouldn't happen. That contradicts this piece of canon prior. And I'm sure there's other people looking at it who now crawl over it with a fine-tooth comb that say, we have are you going to resolve this issue, and where are you going to resolve this issue? Because potentially it's a continuity problem.
Yeah. So again, you're right on point with Super Strays. Oh, very good. Filoni's a student of George that surpassed his master, at least in my opinion. Right. Filoni isn't perfect, but he definitely succeeds in planning ahead, creating a cohesive story. I think Filoni is more respectful of canon than George ever was.
I agree. And in fact, George specifically said about continuity is that a good writer doesn't need to pay attention to continuity.
Right? It's for wimps. Continuity's
Yes.
for wimps.
Continuity's for wimps, is what he said.
Yeah,
That's
Dale.
the exact quote.
Yeah, I know. You're welcome, Dale. Gray, you're back. Good. I hope you got your brain tickled, right? That's how they do the COVID test. They stick that thing up and they tickle your brain with it, right? I hope that went well. Super Strays, in his opinion, again, most of the prequels came from people being peer pressured into hating them. You know, I
just hate them.
I somewhat agree with you. When I first watched the prequels, I loved them and I defended them. Over time, that eroded. And then I began to see major issues with them. And then given more time with them and more viewings of them, they began to irritate me. And now, and it got really bad, really, really bad, where I was like an active dislike for them. Now, at least I can appreciate them for what they are, but I still have some major, major, major issues with the prequels. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I can tell you Vega's first views of the prequels were fan films.
Oh, yeah.
Or not fan films, but fan edits.
Well, look, we'll go on a tangent. I got to stop.
I'm just saying that that I started rewriting them back in 2006. So I mean that's well before the peer prayer. When did Red Letter Media come out? That was like 2010, wasn't it?
Oh, time flies when you're my age, and
I ain't that far behind you there, Santa.
I get shocked sometimes when the things that are like they tell me something I think happened 5 years ago. They're like, no, that happened in 2000. That was 20 years ago. I'm like, what? There's no way.
I'm with you.
What are you talking about?
I mean, just understand we're now closer to 2050 than we are to 1990.
Oh, I can't take it. Right, my oldest was born in 91. So I just don't know. And Gray, you bring up another good point. Gray, she's a sequel trilogy fan. So am I, and I'm an original trilogy guy. Right, I was born in '67. And I grew up with the original trilogy, and I adore the sequel trilogy, and I defend it all the time. But that's one for an old geezer to be that way. Most of my peers hate it, but Gray, being a fan, my youngest daughter, born in 2001, she loves the sequels. It's her favorite trilogy. I see college age students like the Goldman defending the sequels on a regular basis, right? He's a college student. Star Wars only is critical, but he's a college age student. And you see then teens, preteens who are growing up with sequels, and I think they will be sequel defenders.
I think you're right. Vega defends it to me all the time. Yeah. I mean, right. She's 11.
Right. Like or hate the prequels, I don't care, but you need something fixed if you hate either. Right. Yeah, that's right. And you need to come up with some way you can contextualize it to work for you. And either you're willing to do that or not.
Right.
Right.
I mean, that's the process, right? So that's what we're getting. I mean, this long. I mean, what was Clone Wars for us? It was long form storytelling.
Yep.
And it helped fill in the blanks of the Clone Wars.
Perfect.
So that we could get to Revenge of the Sith.
Perfect.
And so what are we getting now? Long form storytelling that'll get us to the sequels so that we can accept the sequels. I mean, that's really what it is. And we'll have some minor changes and we'll hate our aspects of it, and we'll always have the original trilogy if that's what you fell in love with. And and I'll rewrite them. I'll get the stories that I like one way or the other. I mean, the universe is created. I'll go and see these movies. I'll go and see the really cool fight scenes. I'll go see these things, and if nothing else, I'll enjoy them for the eye candy they are.
Well, there you go. In Dark Winter, your feelings here are shared amongst many. I disagree with you, but look, that's fine. It said there's a plan, but it was discarded to fill a pointless agenda that doesn't help with the franchise nor the business, should have been trumped Ryan's subversion. I disagree with you. vehemently disagree. I love the sequels, and the storyline there to me makes sense, and it's engaging. The characters, to me, I connect with very strongly, as well as many other people do. I disagree that it was a pointless agenda that didn't help the franchise. There's always been some agenda involved, and I think there are people who are highlighting a perceived agenda for a purpose. And we talked about the fandom menace types before. I don't think that they're coming at it from 100% good place, and that they're
anger clouds a lot. I mean,
yeah,
it's I mean, they're just you just got to understand they're really angry. I mean, and we're all, remember we just talked about all grieving in our own way, right? So one of those phases is anger, right?
That's right.
And,
that's right. And
so,
go ahead.
So so I just there's aspects that has to be done. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's things that whether it's fixing them, we're never going to get a full rewrite. There's going to have to be some acceptance. We got to move into that phase, right, of our grief.
Well, the stages of grief are absolutely real within the fandom, and you can see it. And it's I've talked about it a little bit before. There is a strong correlation between groups and how you see them responding and where they are in that grief cycle. That's absolutely true. And Gray clarified she's a prequel fan, not a sequel fan. Sorry about that. TFA was enjoyable. TLJ is watchable. Tross is okay. XR Kun, I tend to put them in that order. Just myself, I prefer them in release order. Is my favorite to least favorite. The Force Awakens is my favorite of the sequels. Last Jedi I really like, and Rise of Skywalker disappointed me in several ways, but I still like it. Hope they reveal all of Episode 8. There were things, right? There are things, and I get the criticisms, and there's lots of decisions they made that I wouldn't have made, and many of them would have made them better for me. And I think, just as Imagic Maker said, there are rewrites that would have made them better for him, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see a redo at a minimum of the Last Jedi. I would really love to see that, but I honestly, I guess I've moved in acceptance phase, maybe.
Maybe. And great, you're right. The Mandalorian is making the sequels better, and I think the Filoniverse will continue to give that underpinning and make it stronger. Yeah,
I think ultimately we'll see all these pieces come together. Where I think you'll first start seeing some stuff is that when you get in future releases of the Rise of Skywalker or these other things, you'll see ships, in that armada of stuff. You'll see some Mandalorian ships in there, and you're going to see some aspects of these things show up as they go to face off. So I think right now we don't see them. Right now they're not tied together. But there will be some minor retconning, like I said, Lacasianism occurring. And I think we just gotta wait and be patient to see this play out.
Yeah.
And like I said, some people's scars are deeper than others. Some of them have healed less fast than others. Some people are just really angry, and it takes time to heal. And
you're right. You're absolutely
right. So I think us getting angry with the fandom menace and the most hurt about it. I get it that they're making money off of it, but they're really just using their the reason why they resonate and make money is because they resonate, right? If they didn't resonate with people, they wouldn't make any money.
Yeah. And Dark Winter posted again the review about Snow. Look, without going into all the details, we'll be here all day. Is I do think I'll tell the story, and we'll get a lot more perspective. So you kind of ask a question here as well. It says like how Snoke corrupted the New Republic into bombing Luke's temple. However they act upon that, I personally think that they're going to have a much more devastating event around Luke that tears him apart at the fabric of his being, and that will put things in context rather than just the incident with Luke or with Ben that we see in The Last Jedi. I think there'll be a lot more context to that tears him apart at his fabric, and we'll get that story told. That's already beginning. The pieces that are already being put in place, and if you follow the threads, you can kind of follow it. But we'll get into that some other time. I love the Sith because of the lightsabers. You know, Mike, it's funny you bring that up because I had a kid this year as I was doing Santa visits say that they wanted a Darth Vader lightsaber and a Kylo Ren lightsaber. Oh, you like red lightsabers?
Here's an example of stuff too. I mean, it's like, I love Rebels. And in fact, I love Rebels more than I love the Clone Wars. But like, if I had that conversation with Thor, I mean, Thor would be adamantly against me, and because he does not have the same opinion,
right?
And so people are like, I don't like the animation. I like the animation, but I don't like it in the Clone Wars. I mean, to me, it's better, and so I guess it's a matter of opinion. I'm not an animator, but I mean, I like that visual, and so of course, I think the ultimate perfection of animation was in season 7 of Clone Wars, so that actually trumps them both as far as animation to me. But even so as much as I love the Ahsoka issue, so let's go into that. So I mean, the point of it is that we can nitpick these things all day long.
Oh yeah,
and so like I can go into the Ahsoka series and go, oh well, I don't think she should have been able to do that. It's kind of as much as I love Ahsoka, I think that was kind of Mary Sue-ish, and so I can pinpoint something that I don't like. And that's what the character that I really do like. So and so I could do the same thing with many different characters, and so if our expectation is perfection, well, guess what, guys? We have never had that in Star Wars ever.
No. You know, that's a really good point of Magic Maker. Like that's part of what endears Star Wars to me. Are the silly things that just don't make sense. There's just things, and it you have to embrace it because it's been there since the beginning, right? It just has, and it continues. And you're right. You could pick on anybody. Ezra, for sure. Anakin, Ahsoka, Sabine. All of them have things where you can find in their storyline things that quote unquote break canon, and you just have to reconcile it for yourself, or just say, like I think you did with hyperspace travel in Star Wars, or just space travel in period.
Right.
Like some of it just don't make sense.
That's right. I said throw physics out the window. I have a video on that. So if you want to go over there and look at throw physics out the window, it's 3 minutes of your time. It's a pretty good story. It
is a pretty good one. And I encourage people to go over there to Reimagining Star Wars and check out that video because it is pretty good. It's not that long, right?
It's only like 3 minutes, I think.
It is. It's really good.
You know, guess what, guys? This is what the Mandalorian proved. Throw physics out the window.
Exactly. Some things just aren't going to make sense in Star Wars. Get over it. Yeah. Dark Winter. I wish they'd announce a series set in a prequel area, but from the Separatist point of view. Maybe. I'm really looking forward to our discussion tomorrow about during the post Return of the Jedi to the sequel trilogy, and maybe even concurrent with the sequel trilogy, a discussion we'll have tomorrow. XR Coon, I'm a Clone Wars baby. So there you go. MCU guy, some things are better than others, right? Yeah.
That's true across the board. I mean, Godfather was a really good movie. Godfather 2 is a really good movie. Godfather 3, not so much.
Yep. So we got some. Yeah, kids are good. Right. So Superman 3, not so good.
It's just how it is. I mean, it's like not everything is going to be great, and I wish that was not the case. I mean, it's just, but that is the case. That is reality.
Yep.
And
I want to catch up on the chat here. Kids will defend the sequels, but anyone to interrupt now are Clone Wars fans. That's primarily true. 25 to 30 are prequelers. That's right.
Yeah.
Comic books, deals and deals. Thanks for your support. Appreciate you being here. Gray, I don't hate anything. Star Wars related, I've grown to a point now where I don't hate some of the prequels, but I still have some strong dislike for parts of it. There's some difficulties with Rise, but I like the character development. Kylo's not as whiny, right? And Super Stray is actually a huge fan of Rise. Good. Great. I love Kylo Ren. A lot of people look, Kylo Ren, I think, even for me, is the best character out of the sequels by far. That's just the way it is. And I love Rey. Don't get me wrong, right? She connects with me on a very deep personal level that I've talked about. I love Rey, but I think Kylo is a better character as far as the sequels are concerned.
Yeah, I think some simple changes could have really made Rey a much better character, and I don't think it would have taken a whole heck of a lot. It's unfortunate that they kind of did disrupt and what's the word I'm looking for? Stunt her development.
Yeah,
I mean, the same thing is true with Finn. I think Finn could have developed into a much better character.
Oh, no question.
And,
no question.
I think I have often said this. I mean, I think the prequels are not not the trilogy of what could have been. They are the trilogy of what should have been, and the sequels are the trilogy of what could have been. And the reason I state that is because, all right, we have a distinct continuity outlined in that of what truth is from the perspective of Star Wars in the OT. So if you honor that continuity and the things that the words and the setups that were said and the things that were said in the OT, and then take that into the prequels, it becomes the trilogy of what should have been. It should have been aligned with the OT to enhance and develop and make the OT even bigger and even more amazing as we go back and look at it again.
I see a lot of that in the sequels just from my own point of view, but I see where there's opportunity missed as well.
Right.
And
that's why I say that the sequels are the trilogy of what could have been.
Yeah.
Because we could have developed Finn more. We could have not stunted the arc of Rey. I mean, there's a lot of could has and should have done, could have done's had they planned it properly.
Yeah. Gray, I agree. Hondo is one of the best Star Wars characters. That's a true statement.
That is a true statement.
That
and just to let you know, if you haven't already done it, Hondo is like the main thing in Smuggler's Run, and he is absolutely hilarious.
Oh, yes. Imagic Maker just got to go down there to Galaxy's Edge with your family, and that's great.
I did, and it was a lot of fun.
Good.
So you have to pilot Smuggler's Run. You have to actually go in there and pilot it. So a word of warning: if you have a 6-year-old, he's probably not your best pilot for that game. For that ride.
Hey, XR Coon, red is the best color in black. Can't disagree with you. Look, Santa loves red. And just a little preview. I've got a little thing coming up. I'll hold this up for those that are still with us. Look what I got. Ooh, you want one too? It's Moff Gideon. You know what he has? You know what he has? He's got the dark saber right there. We're going to unpack it. We'll take a look at it. Very exciting. Purple's my favorite. Mace. Yes. Yeah. A lot of people. Yeah. A kid actually told Santa I'm on the dark side.
I think that was Vega that said that if she had the choice, she'd be on the dark side.
XR Coon, every DC. There you go again, XR Coon. You can't pick on Superman. You don't pull on Superman's cape. Don't you know the song? Yeah. Santa, do you think it makes sense to have someone who's impartial to the whole Star Wars franchise be in charge of Lucasfilm?
No.
Look, there you go. No, and Lucasfilm is bigger than just Star Wars. Let's be clear about that. So I think
actually, speaking of that, I'm super excited about the Willow series.
Oh my goodness, there's so much coming, and not only that, but they have a chance with Indiana Jones to maybe close that out better. Oh, I mean, can't do worse, right? it's so a lot of people want
That was
like
under Lucas. Remember, guys, that Indiana 4 was under Lucas.
yeah. Not only that, but that Duck movie, Howard the Duck. Oof.
Oh yeah, I liked Howard the Duck. That's a
oof.
but
Um,
I was pretty young then.
a lot of people want Filoni raised to the head of Lucasfilm. I don't think so. He needs to stay within Star Wars, and Lucasfilm is bigger than Star Wars. Somebody needs to be in charge of Lucasfilm who's not necessarily impartial to Star Wars, but somebody who is respectful and can hire the right people to run the franchise under their leadership. The Star Wars franchise.
The best thing that why can't I think of her name now? The best thing that Lucasfilm had when Lucas was in charge was the person who ran all the other stuff for the business. So the only thing that Lucas had to think about was story.
Yeah.
All right.
Ezra has a gold saber. You'd agree with that?
Yeah, I would. So my point of it is that Lucas was allowed to run the stories, and so, in my opinion, the way that what needs to happen is somebody who is business savvy, who loves storytelling, the aspect of storytelling, from a business point of view.
Yep.
All right, is the one that takes over and runs Lucasfilm, and so I think that. It's not that I don't think that Kathleen Kennedy couldn't be that. I just don't think that in the same way that Lucas had somebody running the business while he was running the story. All right. You need that. So that person has to be divorced from controlling the story narrative.
And Kathleen Kennedy has that person there now.
Right.
She didn't before, but she does now. She's got Favreau and Filoni who are doing a great job with the story.
Right. And that's what was missing from the beginning. So, I mean, so the thing is, like, they got rid of that structure when Kennedy came on. Right. And so the reason why you have, in my opinion, that the what occurred is that she was overwhelmed doing what she was trying to do, the producing at the same time as running the business. And I think I think that many people would find themselves in a failing position.
Agreed. I absolutely agree. And Russell, you're killing me. He said, changing my name to Marvel Krampus soon. And I like this. The problem with the sequels is no loss of limbs in every film. Where we did not have near enough loss of limbs in the sequels. But
agreed. Ray should have definitely lost a hand. No one. Only time that we ever have a foot is in the sequels or in the prequels, and that's really a whole leg.
Right.
Maybe Ray should have just lost a foot.
A foot.
Just a foot.
Would have been unique. Yeah. Sorry, the light speed skip and the whole other thing. Well, again, we're going to get into some specifics. Kylo, Super Strays, Kylo Ren's favorite Star Wars character, Lovey's Arc. It is really good. Kylo posed no threat. Well, again, we're going to stray off.
I mean, I think we could go down the path of hating on. I mean, like if we wanted to make Santa's day really bad, I could go on a rant, and we can go for an hour on ranting on the sequel trilogy, and all of you who don't like the sequel trilogy would laugh really hard, and Santa would be crying, and then we'd be laughing at Santa, and it'd be a whole new controversy, and we'd have our own little war inside of our little.
You don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the guy that made Santa cry.
That's right. I mean, and everybody would hate me, and people would unsub from me, and so it would be bad. So the point of it is that all right, let's just be fans, right?
Right.
And it's try to build these bridges of empathy. That's what we were talking about last week. The reason why some of this empathy can't be built yet is because some people are in different parts of the grieving process and they're still angry. You can't build empathy with somebody who's really angry because they're just not over it yet. They're not over it yet. And
true.
And that may last for 3 or 4 years. I mean, and honestly, Santa, how long did it take you to finally come to terms with the prequels? How long was that?
When were they released, and what's today?
Last was 2005.
And what's today?
Right.
So
Right. So you still have issues today with the prequels.
Right.
And
Right.
so here so realize that there may be there may be some aspect that they may never fully come to terms with this
I
issue.
absolutely agree with you. Yeah,
Right.
and it's just stop pouring fuel on the fire, right?
Right.
Stop
Well,
doing that.
and that will occur eventually too. So what did the prequels haters need in order to kind of get to the point of healing? They had
Contact.
we needed context, and we needed our red letter. We actually needed our red letter media
Well, that's
and
true.
our confused Matthew and all these different guys who
That's
came
true.
out. And then what happened? And then we had
Yeah.
a series of people rewriting them and putting out their videos of their rewrites of the prequels, how the prequels should have been. If the or what was it? Something media. Crap, can't think of it. Anyway, belated media. What if the prequel trilogies were good, right?
Oh,
And so,
yeah.
but we needed this. That was part of it. This allowed our healing process to occur.
Yeah.
And so and that brings us, and this will occur with the sequel trilogy. I'm not saying I'll ever love the sequel trilogy,
Right.
but there'll be a point where I actually can watch. I don't know if I'll ever be able to watch Last Jedi, but maybe. And but
Right. Right. I mean, that's the way I am with Attack the Clones. Oh my
yes,
goodness.
absolutely. That's
Oh,
why you have. That's why you
it's
have to look at my look at my buddy's fan edit. I mean, it's really good. It's called The Separatist. That
Yeah.
edited much better. It cuts out like 20 minutes of pain.
Yeah. Wu-Tang, hoping Thrawn fills the gap of a big bad, right? So interesting. So yesterday, Generation Tech did a good video on Thrawn. There are 3 Thrawns depicted in Star Wars. First, you've got the original Timothy Zahn trilogy that painted him as the heir to the Empire, right? So quite literally. And then you've got the Rebels, where he's kind of a bad guy, and then you've got in the novels, the new canon novels, where he put in there he's a neutral good. His interest is in defending the Chiss ascendancy, and he is a protagonist in that, not an antagonist. So will Thrawn be the next big bad? I'm not sure. He has a potential, but they've got to figure out who Thrawn is, really.
Right. I mean, I think they're making a nuanced character, and honestly, I think in this day and age, we love nuanced characters.
Yep.
So,
you're right. Yeah.
And I think that's I do think that's where we're going. I actually would love to see a Thrawn that, and we can talk about this more tomorrow, but I would love to see a Thrawn that actually wants Palpatine to come back because he considers a return of Palpatine less a threat than the Grisk.
Oh,
To me, that would just make it seem like, what?
There you go. Preview for tomorrow. So Wu-Tang, Russell says, Favreau head of Lucas, Filoni head of Star Wars. I'm almost more in favor of Feige in charge of Lucasfilm. Maybe Feige's head of Disney production, and then you leave Favreau over Lucasfilm, Filoni inside of Star Wars. Yeah, could work.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Favreau would probably be a good choice, but I think really Favreau wants to create, and I think anybody who goes in to run Lucasfilm can't really be a creator. I really think that Lucas was in a unique situation where he was the head of his company but didn't run his company.
And Anthony raises a question that's perfect for the topic. When they finish the Indiana series, who would you reboot the series with? Lucasfilm is not just Star Wars. We've said this before. It's also Indiana Jones.
Right.
And you're right. If Favreau, everybody has that tight correlation between Lucasfilm and Star Wars, rightfully so, but it's bigger than that. And I don't know. I think Favreau could do well because he is a good storyteller. And he could be over these other franchises as well with good storytellers working for him. So I think it could work.
I think it could work, but not if he's having to run the business aspects of it.
And I'm not in favor of rebooting the franchise. I'm in favor of starting a new one. So they've kind of got other possibilities for that. What's this one that's coming out with Dwayne Johnson, where he's a river boat captain on an expedition?
Oh, that's Jungle Cruise. That's Disney.
Jungle Cruise. Yeah, Jungle
that's
Cruise.
based off the ride Jungle Cruise.
Yeah. But you could do something like that. You could take Jungle Cruise and
but that won't be part of Lucasfilm and just part of Disney, studios. So I think if we look at properties that and I think you're absolutely right that they're going to have to develop new ones. And I think this what's it, the something of Blood and Bone is one of the attempts.
Yeah, not a fan of the book. I read it. Ugh.
Yeah, I've never read the book or anything. And I'm not saying it's wonderful or anything.
Right.
All I'm saying is that's an attempt by Lucasfilm to branch out. What I would like to see, there are some reboots that I think would be good. I think Willow would be a good reboot. I think they're going to build. I think they're not going to reboot it, but they're going to pick up on that. So you'll have the series will be a sequel on Willow. I think anyway. That would be my expectation. And I think that's a good thing. And building on that series, and I think really it'll be the sequel to it, and it'll develop new characters and into the new level of stuff. So we're really getting a whole new story that's with the basis of the movie that started the whole thing off.
And I like this idea of a what if with Clone Wars animation, a what if series and animation around Star Wars. That'd be fun.
Yep. I think you could definitely do that. And then you have we just talked about the Indiana Jones series, and I think if they want to continue that will have to be a reboot. But I think it's the only way to move forward with it. And then you have one of the things we haven't talked about is Labyrinth. Labyrinth is
oh my goodness
is one of their properties.
And
to me, I would like to see that rebooted and move forward. I think that I think you could have Johnny Depp playing the Goblin King. I think he'd be a great Goblin King.
Oh, it could be great.
There's a couple other actors I could think of that would be good. That could do it good.
And use Chris Pratt in everything. That's what I see in the chat. You guys want Chris Pratt to be in all the franchises.
Yes. Chris Pratt should rule Hollywood.
There you go. Kathleen Kennedy's a scroll. No said. Funny. Brady is a great quarterback, but he should never be in any other. Oh, yeah, the good point. Like sometimes people are good at what they're good at, and they shouldn't be promoted because of that, just for that reason. Just because somebody's a good quarterback doesn't mean they're a good athlete doing everything, and that's true. He might be a good head coach someday. Who knows? But he might suck at it too. Right? Doesn't diminish what he did as quarterback, and that's the point of Kathleen being one of the greatest producers, but not necessarily great president of Lucasfilm. Although some of the changes she made since the sequel trilogies are good changes, and people need to be aware of that. Like, we wouldn't have Favreau and Filoni. We wouldn't have Clone Wars Season 7. We wouldn't have a lot of these things if Kathleen didn't put it in place or allow it to happen. So there's reason for that. Gaming Vulture, welcome. Been a while since I've seen you. Thanks for stopping in. 3 Throns equals Thrawn Thanos. Yeah. D&D terms. Yeah. Thrawn have sympathetic Thanos approach. Will Morgan, you know what I'm going to say? Don't care what you think. I just rewatched Crystal Skull. Lucas's only sin is being ahead of his time consistently. Ooh, Will, Crystal Skull. Okay, I'm looking forward to your video on that. Give me that. Will Morgan has a fantastic YouTube channel. If you guys haven't checked it out, you should. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's something to do with Easter eggs, something. It'll come to me. Thrawn. Hopefully Rebels Thrawn. Gray likes the Rebels Thrawn, the bad guy Thrawn. I like the novels Thrawn, the protagonist Thrawn. And it sounds to me like a Magic Maker. You like the Heir to the Empire Thrawn.
I do, but I also don't mind a nuanced Thrawn at all.
XR Coons, Feige should be Disney CCO. Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. I agree with you. Pooling your cereal. Head of Disney's way too many responsibilities. Feige have freedom focused on Star Wars and Marvel. Maybe. I mean, who else would you put in there, Pooh?
I think Feige is going to move up into Alan. Was it Alan Horn or no? Who's the overall Disney Studios?
That's what we're saying, right?
Yeah,
He doesn't want
Yeah. So Feige will move there, and he should. And he's done a good job in coordinating Marvel and getting it all together. But there's a lot of the pieces in there. He's done a good job of hiring, and I think that's kind of the key factor. And so I think that he needs to move there if he's going to do it, because Kathleen Kennedy is going to need a replacement. She can't stay there forever. I don't care if she does everything 100% correct from 2020 until her eventual day of retirement or demise. She eventually will leave. She'll eventually be gone. And so a replacement will be needed. So I think if there's anything that Feige has done pretty well, it is managing and hiring well.
See, the chat is doing a great job here, guys. Wu-Tang say shamelessly skipping over the Chris Pratt comments. I grouped them all together there, Russell. I said Chris Pratt should be the head, the lead actor in all Disney Studios properties. There you go.
That's right. I agree. He should be the next Luke, Han, and
Luke, Han, and
Vader.
There you go. All at the same time. Yeah,
that's right. At the same time, he's got to play all the roles. He should even be Leia.
What there you go. What about the Lion King sequel coming out though? Shia LaBeouf. Oh, that dude is. I think his career's over. I think he's done. He needs to go. That young man or middle-aged man, whatever you want to call him now, he's got to go. He's not good.
Sometimes you're just too crazy for your own good.
That's and terrible. Tom Holland is Indy. Ooh,
no, he's too short.
Too short. They're doing something with somewhere to Indiana Jones with Tom Holland based on a video game, Uncharted. Oh, and Gray doesn't mind Tom.
What was that guy? There was an actor that portrayed a young Han Solo or a young Harrison Ford in another movie. I can't think of it with
wasn't that Shia?
No. Shia just played in the Crystal Skull with him. I can't think of the name of the movie. But yeah, so and that people were screaming over that guy because they wanted that guy to play Han Solo in the Solo movie. And people were because he looks a lot like a young Harrison Ford.
Well,
and he's portrayed Harrison Ford before, the character that Harrison Ford was playing as a young person, and so people were saying that he had like all the mannerisms down and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's no different than people calling for Sebastian Stan, who looks like Luke, to play Luke.
That's what I was going to say. Right? I mean, it just makes sense.
So I mean, I think as long as if they want to do that, that's fine. I mean, I think that's a role to go. But I definitely think that Lucas needs to be careful with who they choose to play certain roles, and I think it's also need to be careful that. I think here's the main thing: you want to solve all these problems. You can tell, just like I was telling with Leah Love, right? Said you do two things. You keep my continuity, which Lucas didn't do, and you tell me a good story, which Lucas did do. All right, and if you can do those two things, all right, you will have my love forever.
Yeah, and I think they're largely on that right path, and that's what Grace. Kathleen's made some great choices as of late. Agreed. She's learned, and the decisions she's made of late are really good, and we should be happy for that. Will Meta Egg, please you do yourself a favor. Look up Meta Egg YouTube channel, follow it, watch his videos. Will is killing it over there. And really good content. Really, I mean, amazing. Really, really good work. Everyday Geeks, yo. Ho, ho, ho. How about that? Wu-Tang. Tom Cruise looks 6 foot in every movie. Tom Holland could do fine.
I guess that's true to some degree. All we gotta do is put stilts on Tom Holland, the same as they do to Tom Cruise. What's up with the short Toms?
Racer gender swap, all to 9 Rick for Indy.
That's
But
I love
Danny
it.
Trejo in real life, he's like 5'2".
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone's short too.
No, Will Shia's done. Look, he's got some serious charges out there now, being abusive, and on several different women. He's in big trouble.
Yeah, you know what they say the biggest criteria for being a good actor and making it big is head ratio to body. So the bigger your head to your body, the more likely you are to becoming famous.
That explains the guy that's in all those movies with and I can't remember. I can't know why I can't. He's in all the movies with shoot. I love it.
All right. So why do you think I think about it?
Kevin Hart.
Who?
Kevin Hart.
Oh yeah. That explains a lot. So I have a question for everybody.
Perfectly. Right, because he's really short, but he's got a really big head. He's a great actor. He's very funny, right? There you go.
Yeah, I think he's extremely funny. I have a question for everybody. So if you can answer in this is actually for Santa. So of course we want Santa to grow, right? And we also know that a 2-hour video is hard to watch all the way through.
Yeah.
And some people that don't necessarily willing to watch may not watch it because 2 hours gets intimidating. Would you prefer that we break this up into shorter segments, not in the same way we take this whole live stream, break it up into shorter segments and release it over the next day or two? Would that be something that appeal to people, and would that be something you'd be willing to share?
That's a really good question, Magic Maker. Thank you for bringing it up. I do want to touch base on that again at the end, so we'll allow some folks to comment on it, and then we'll touch base at the very end here. I'm trying to get caught up so we can get there. I agree with you, Everyday Geeks. Solo, there's a lot of reasons it didn't perform as well as it should have, and or could have. I shouldn't say should. It didn't perform as well as it could have, and there's there's a reason why it costs more than it should have. How about that? Dude in Age of Adrenaline, Age of Adeline.
Yes, that was exactly Age of Adeline. That was the movie I was trying to think of.
Yeah, what happened with Shia LaBeouf? First of all, he's just crazy. That's one. The dude is not wound real tight. And then secondly, there are several women now, prominent actresses, who have come out and said that he's abusive.
Yeah, or he's wound too tight and has sprung his spring.
Well, that too. Don't judge someone's acting career based off of their personal life. Well, I mean, there has to be some accountability on Shia's part. I mean, that you can't be as abusive as he is, right? Now, being crazy is one thing. I mean, there's plenty of crazy actors making the rounds in Hollywood, in lots of movies. What's that one dude's name that's an absolutely certifiable nutso, right? He was in Apprentice, Celebrity Apprentice. The dude is crazy, but that's fine.
Gary Busey.
Gary Busey. Oh my goodness, right? Guy's hilarious and crazy.
Yes, but I mean, but it's not just that he is abusive and crazy. Is that he's hard to work with on set, so that makes him really hard to be to get employment. I mean, the same thing has actually hurt Christian Bale, Val Kilmer, and Edward Norton. They're hard to work with on set. So I think these guys get a little bit of a head, and it gets a little, even though they have bigger heads than normal for everybody else, their head gets too big for their shoulders, and and so and I think that you add a lot of yes men around them that they become almost unmanageable, for sure. And so if they don't curtail their attitude, the directors and the producers just don't want to work with them.
That's true. And XR Coon missed his calling. He was a bobblehead as a kid. Yeah. That's funny. Let's see. Solo part. Yeah, Solo had a lot of reasons why it didn't perform as well as it could have. And that's one of the reasons. Absolutely. Tom Cruise is a really good actor. Yeah, and he is crazy too.
Yes.
By the way. Pooh, I love the stream format. Maybe having clips of the stream, like clipping them out.
Yeah, that's all I was thinking, is that we take segments. Like we talk about a topic. Like we talked about how to fix the fandom, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that for about 20 minutes. So we clip that out.
Yeah.
And that becomes fixing the fandom,
That's good.
And then we talk about how crazy Shia LaBeouf is for 10 minutes. So we put that out. Crazy Shia LaBeouf, is his career done? And what does that mean to Star Wars? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Wu-Tang, Will, I assume everyone's a horrible person, so I'm unbiased in judging talent. That's good. Not condoning what he's. Yeah. We have to be careful too, because like you mentioned before, Johnny Depp's gotten himself involved in all kind of controversy, and apparently he's not made some really good decisions in his personal life with drinking, addiction, things like that. You can't judge him entirely based on that. You have to hold up his acting career for what it is. And he's losing jobs because of his personal life. And you have to be a little bit careful with that, I think.
Well, I think a lot of it's because if your personal life affects your work life, I mean, that would be true for anybody, right? So like if I go to work and the only thing I'm dealing with is my personal life, then I ain't making money. So I mean, if I'm not making money, then I ain't living, then I ain't paying for the things that my family needs. So I mean, personal life does matter, and and in the sense that when it comes to work and getting jobs, because if it affects it, then you're not employable.
Yeah. Well, everyone's automatically on these naughty lists. Gray, Joaquin Phoenix, he's nuts. There's another one. Put him on the list. Crazy guys that are good actors. Yeah.
He's definitely a mix of pecans and cashews.
That's a great way to put that. Hey, we're right at 2 hours. Oh my goodness. I can't believe we've taken this much time out of the day. But I do want to say we are looking for ways to grow. Imagic Maker and I had a discussion about the other day. We enjoy bringing content to you. We're having a good time. Just to tell you the truth, we're both enjoying what we're doing, and we think this partnership with the two of us is healthy for the fandom. We think we're doing good work here, but we're reaching a very small population, right? Not saying that we're aspiring to have 2.5 million subs, next year, but it would be nice to have more than 2, 4, 500, right? So we would like to grow the channels. And we would like to be able to reach more people. And so for whatever you could suggest or recommend to us to help us improve, we are absolutely asking you for that feedback. We've kind of talked amongst each other on what we think of our content and things we might be able to do. We're getting feedback from our family members, our loved ones, who are telling us we suck or we don't, right? and so we trust you guys. You're part of our community. You've given us great support here, great feedback, and we just want to grow and be able to reach more people with the kind of things that we're doing, because we do think it's the kind of thing that the fandom itself needs to heal and to move through these stages of grief and to be able to feel like they can express themselves in a reasonable manner, right? We're not out here spreading or fanning the flames or pouring fuel on the fire. We're trying to say, hey, we acknowledge there's a problem here or a problem there, and talk about those things. So
yeah, I mean, I think there's good work that we're doing, and we're talking about different aspects, and we're trying to bring our brand of Star Wars to y'all. And I think we've reached a audience. We would like to see that audience expand.
Yeah.
The same as you're talking about. And as much as I love the feedback from my daughter and son, Daddy, you're the best, doesn't help me grow very much. And my wife's, you sound boring.
Right. My wife is like, like you're Santa and you're a nerd. You're weird. That's what my wife tells me. So, well, okay, that's helpful.
So yeah, if I sound boring, a comment of, "Hey, I love your channel. You sound boring."
Yeah, and I know Trinity used to call it. He had his time with what was it, nerds, geeks, and weirdos, or something like that. And so I always count myself as a weirdo in his community. Well, my wife tells me I'm one, so there you go.
I guess I just get that you're strange.
Maybe talk more than Star Wars. I have thought about that, Gray, and we kind of did bleed over into other topics today. And I too like Scotty Summers, and Cyclops is probably my favorite X-Man as a whole. There's Trinity. He's still listening. Good to have you here. I'm one of Trinity's weirdos in his stream. So there you go. And I saw the we didn't start the fire comments. So you got Billy Joel in my head. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. Well, you guys.
Children of the little mind.
There you go. Good job. That was great. Perfect execution. So tomorrow, a Magic Maker and I will be at it again. Hopefully, we won't go 2 hours, but we will be back here again tomorrow to talk about what else is going on in the Star Wars universe with these major groups outside of the sequel trilogy. Where are the Mandalorians? What's going on with them? What about Thrawn and the Chiss? Where were they during the sequel trilogy? What might be going on there? And what about the crime lords, bosses, and other syndicates out there? And might there be stories to be told in that space that run concurrent with the sequel trilogy? So look for us here tomorrow, and we'll be back here, and maybe we'll try to be more clickbait. No, I'm not. So look, we've reached out to some bigger creators. We did get Thor Skywalker to do an interview with us. I've begged our friend at the Den of Nerds, right, Josh. I've come on bended knee. Please come talk to us. But haven't been able to work into his schedule yet. So we'll keep trying to do that. And in the toy space, I know Mike Porter's given me a recommendation, and there's some folks I'm following there as well. And we've got some folks in that space that are reaching out to me, and we'll see if we can carve out a niche there as well.
Yeah, and I think that like I said, and I'll continue to offer it, that you let me know what you're getting. If you want to get something that's on the shelf, I'll order it at the same time, and Vega and Little Ren can do their opening with you and go, "This is what we love about it, Santa."
That would be great. That'd be great. We'll start doing that. I am going to do an unboxing of Moff Gideon because I want to get into that Darksaber. I see it in there. It's in the box. There it is. Oh, it's got to come out. So we'll get into that.
I'm a little excited. But
I am.
I think that we have a good chemistry, and I think that if we can just get it out there and break it up into bite sizes, then I think that that it'll expand. And so we appreciate all of you for enjoying the little bit of chemistry and for contributing the parts that you have. And now we just hope that we can get better at this and as a team and expand to help the fandom overall to enjoy our toys and our laughter and the things that we do get along on.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much, folks. We will talk to you tomorrow. And until then, as I always say, Merry Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.